Hey everybody, Scott from West New York Brews here, and today is less of a review and more of just a glowing endorsement. So a quick backstory. A couple of years ago, me and my brother-in-law started a competition barbecue team, and I don't want to brag, but we were kind of a big deal. What's this? A $30 check for second place in the backyard division at the Smoking Eagles barbecue competition in Tonawanda? Yeah. Okay, so maybe we weren't that big of a deal, but it gave me the opportunity, the need to buy a thermometer that I had been looking at ever since my hero picked one up. All right, and that's the Thermapen. Now, if you're like me, you probably use one of these things over here, the dial thermometer, and I still use it on every single brew. I also have thermometers, floating thermometers, and non-contact infrared thermometers. We're going to talk about those too. But I want to show you my pride and joy. Okay, my splash resistant Thermapen. Yep, it's totally in my thermometer drawer. Here we go. Alright, I know it'll make Alton proud. So here is my Thermapen. It's splash resistant, it fits in your pocket. So as soon as you take the probe out, it will start reading the temperature. Now you see, it's a really tiny little probe there. Okay, that's good because you can get it into the food and you don't have to worry about creating a huge gaping hole in whatever you're cooking. Alright, but for home brewing, this is great, and here's why. Now the important temperatures I'm looking for when I'm bringing up my strike water is about 170, depending on what I'm making, to pour that into my mash tun. So I'm going to pour that into my mash tun, the water. Now I can use this kind of a thermometer here, the dial thermometer, and that's going to get me pretty close. Then when I want to dial it in the mash tun, however, if I'm adding hot or cold water, I don't have time with that lid open to use this dial thermometer and wait. That's what makes the Thermapen so nice. I can give it a couple of swirls in there and get a reading instantly. Okay, I say instantly. It's a little bit less than a second, maybe a second and a half at most. So right now my water is at about 196 in my pot, and my thermometer here is reading a little bit under 180. I trust this one, and I'm going to show you why. I'm going to show you the calibration very quickly. But it's another good reason to have a Thermapen on, because now I can adjust my dial thermometer to the place where I want it. Here's the view from the bottom so you can see how to do that. You take that little nut there, you put some pliers on it, okay, and then you turn the top. That's it. So you're watching the top and making sure that it's in the right place. Now, I like to keep my dial thermometer dialed in, excuse the pun, at about 150 to 170, because if you calibrate it down at the 30s, then the calibration isn't going to be as accurate as it rises. If you calibrate it up in the boiling range, it's not going to be as accurate down lower. So I like to keep it at about strike range, so between 150 and 170, so that when I'm heating up my strike water, that dial thermometer is at its most useful. All right, for everything else, for the mash, if I ever want to check the boil, or if I want to check even fermentation temperatures, as long as I'm sanitizing this, I use the Thermapen so I can get in and out of the mash tun quickly. I give it a quick stir and I swirl around the tip of this and get a good reading. Now, so here is how to calibrate the Thermapen. I have a vessel of ice water here. It's been filled with ice completely and then filled with water, and it's sat for about a minute or two. You can see my dial thermometer is over 40 degrees on this. Because again, if you're calibrating it at 170, then it's not going to be accurate at the extremes. Now I have a Celsius thermometer, which I'm having difficulty reading, and my Thermapen. So once you have your vessel filled with water and you've let it sit for a minute or two, you're going to take your Thermapen, put it in there, stir it around a little bit so that you're not getting a hot spot or a cold spot, and that you're not resting it right on the ice there. Okay, so my Thermapen right now is reading 32 degrees. That's what it should be at, 32 degrees. So that's how I know that my Thermapen is calibrated. You could do the same thing with boiling water as I have before, but my Thermapen has never let me down. So the other two things I want to show you are my two non-contact thermometers. I have a Klein Tools one and a Ryobi one, and they both are pretty accurate to each other. I haven't found a great use for these yet. So if I'm shooting right here into the pot, it's showing me that my water is about 161 degrees, and then if I check that with my Thermapen, I am getting about 179. Maybe 182, there we go. As stirring and it stabilized, about 182. So you saw it was off by about 20 degrees, which I guess is useful for some things, but for brewing, I never use those infrared thermometers. If you have a good reason to use one, let me know. I'd love to hear it. Otherwise, if you're going for one, the Ryobi is fine, so is the Klein Tools. Get yourself a Thermapen. And if you're not going to take my word for it, take his. Check out WNYBrews.com for more videos and the podcast, and thanks for watching.